Cracklin bread is a dish from the South which consists of cracklins baked into any type of cornbread. What are cracklins? Well, when you render the fat down, most of the fat melts and the pieces that are left are called cracklins. It's a simple recipe made with butter, self-rising cornmeal, flour, egg, and buttermilk. No sugar added. Well, I say that, but I guess it depends on where you live. So we're going to make us some cracklin cornbread. It's really good. The little pieces of cracklin in there just give it kind of a, well, if you like pork rinds, it gives it kind of that taste. It's just all-around good cornbread. And you can buy cracklins at most of your grocery stores. Now the way I make my cracklins is after I render my lard, I let the pieces that are left, I let them stay in there. I let them get good and crispy. And that's a very easy way to get you a bunch of cracklins. If you just processed a fresh hog and you've got the lard, or maybe you've bought some fresh lard from somebody, you just render that lard down, and all them pieces of from the fat, the skin that's left, just let it render and just let it get crispy, and take them out, put them on a paper towel, and you've got cracklins. Now here I got me a package of cracklins, pork cracklins, that I bought at the local grocery store. And like I said, most grocery stores do sell them. You might ask your grocer. There's enough here for probably about 4 pans of cracklin cornbread. We're going to start out with a 10-inch iron skillet. And I greased my iron skillet, and I got me a 1/4 cup of butter in there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick my pan in my oven, and I'm going to turn my oven on, and I'm going to let it get up to 425 degrees. Here we got our cracklins, and this is a cup of cracklins. You can leave them whole, or you can kind of break them up a little bit if you want to. That's just up to you. So let's get our cornbread mixed up. And we're just going to take about, and this is what I'm using. I got Martha White. This is buttermilk, cornmeal mix. You can use yellow, you can use white, whichever, but you need self-rising cornmeal mix. And I've got 2 cups of self-rising cornmeal mix, and I've got a 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour, and I'm just going to kind of stir this up. Now your self-rising cornmeal is going to have your salt and all that stuff in it, so you don't have to add any of that kind of stuff. So I'm going to kind of make me a well in the middle. I'm going to put me 2 eggs. I'm going to kind of stir them up a little bit, just break them up a little bit. And I've got 2½ cups of buttermilk. If you don't have buttermilk, you can make buttermilk by adding a little bit of vinegar into your sweet milk. And I've got a cup of cracklins. And that's all there is to that. And we're just going to mix this up. If you don't have buttermilk and you just want to use regular milk, you can do that too. You might cut it back by a couple of tablespoons. But just regular milk will work. But buttermilk, that's just what we always use in our cornbread or cracklin cornbread. So we're going to just mix this up good. If you want to, you can put more than a cup of cracklins in there. That's just kind of what we prefer. If you like a little more of the texture in there, just add you a little bit more. That's just up to you and how you like it. Okay, we're going to check our skillet. You can see how that texture looks. Our skillet, the butter, I left it in there a little bit too long. I got brown butter, and that is okay because I love brown butter. So we're just going to put all our mixture in here. Now, if you like a thinner cornbread, you can make it in a bigger skillet. Don't think that you have to make it in a 10-inch skillet. Me, myself, I like a thinner cornbread. Mr. Brown just likes cornbread. It don't matter if it's thin, thick, or whatever. He just likes it. So there we go. And we're going to put this in our... You can see how that skillet is so hot. And what it's doing, when I poured that cornbread in there, it browned it up really good. So what we're going to do while our cornbread is cooking, and it's going to cook for about 25-30 minutes. I've got some little potatoes in here that I've cut up, and I'm just boiling them to get them tender. I'm going to make Mr. Brown. I'm going to test one to make sure it's done. I'm going to make Mr. Brown some potato soup to go with that Cracklin cornbread. It's kind of late, and we don't want a big, heavy supper. So I'm just going to drain my potatoes and get a steam facial. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my saucepan. I'm going to put me about 1/4 cup of butter in here. And I'm just going to melt my butter. And once it melts, I'm just going to start adding a little flour to it. Now, I can't give you a measurement on this because I just never measure it. I just put a little bit in a time till I get it to the right consistency. I'm going to put just a little bit more flour. And I'm going to call it almost 1/2 cup of flour. You don't want it to get too thick, so that's why I just put a little bit in a time. You can see the consistency of it. So I let it cook just for about a couple of minutes. Let that flour cook, and I'm going to pour in my milk. I'm just using whole milk. Now, when I'm making potato soup or anything like that, I just like to pour in about half of my milk to begin with, because I like for it to start to thicken up. I'm going to put a little black pepper, or you can use white pepper. We're going to put a little bit of salt, and I'm using sea salt today. And we're just going to keep stirring this. And once this starts to thicken up just a little bit, like it has, I'm going to start pouring a little bit more milk in it. So now that I got all the milk that I want in my pot, I'm going to add me just a few potatoes in here to start with. And I'm going to take my potato masher and I'm just going to mash them a little bit. And what this is going to do is going to help thicken my potato soup up. So I'll probably put about a 1/2 cup of potatoes in there. Mash them up a little bit. Now I'm going to add the rest of my potatoes. Some people like really creamy potato soup. We like kind of chunky. We like to have that them chunks of potatoes in there. So I'm going to let this simmer and let it thicken up. But I'm going to add about a half a teaspoon of onion powder, and some more pepper, and a little bit more salt. Now I'm just going to stir this a little bit, and I'm going to let it simmer. I'm going to let it thicken up. And that's just your simple, old-fashioned potato soup. You see it's starting to thicken up a little bit. It's not to the thick consistency that I really like, but it's getting there. I'm going to put me about a good tablespoon of butter in there and continue to let it cook till it gets a little bit thicker. So our crackling cornbread's done. We're going to get it out of the oven. Now, isn't that a pretty pan of cornbread? Crackling cornbread. It's old-fashioned cornbread with some old-fashioned potato soup. We're going to add a little bit of cheese, a little bit of bacon bits, and I think Mr. Brown's going to be happy. Crackling cornbread. Y'all have to try it.